the biography that you wrote of Eugene Peterson, "A Burning in My Bones," there was an anecdote in there that really jumped out at me, and you can correct me if I'm misremembering it, but you told the story of Eugene being at a Christian conference of some kind and him lamenting that one of the talks that he thought that he heard felt more like, I believe the word that he used was religious theater as opposed to biblical preaching. How would you distinguish those?
Yeah. Religious theater, I think, is when we are playing a role. I mean, even that we probably have to flesh out a little bit, because when we are called by the church to be a pastor or a priest, there is a role we're taking on. We're a spokesperson. So, Yaroslav Pelikan, the church historian, used to say how much relief it brought him to recognize that on Sunday morning, when he was asked to say the Nicene Creed in worship, that he wasn't being asked at this time, at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning, do you existentially feel the deep conviction of all these truths? Do you believe this? He said, no, what I'm being asked at 10 a.m. on Sunday morning is, will I, along with God's people in the church across time and history, confess these truths together? And that's a different orientation. So in the same way, as a spokesperson for the church, I am called to pronounce things that I may not understand, but there's a kind of role which is that the truth of something isn't sinking into our heart, where we might as well, be an insurance salesman with that sort of lingo, or we could be a school teacher with that lingo, or we could be a religious professional with that lingo, and we just change the costume. And but to be someone who is called to pronounce good news, to be someone who is to stand in the middle of chaos and despair and cancer diagnosis and profound injustice, and to not stand there from a place of power, but from a place of weakness, and to proclaim the good news of the day of the Lord, and that resurrection happens, and that this is the true story, and that the walls that are fallen down will be rebuilt, and that there is hope in Christ. And that's a completely different thing than playing a role. And it's something that at some point is going to have to deeply grip our heart. We have to become the good news in order to proclaim it. And I think that a lot of preaching, and I think you probably have to start here, perhaps. I mean, I'm at a seminary, we have to learn forms, but the problem is a lot of conversations in certain circles around preaching, they talk a lot about technique, and technique is fine, important to an extent, but it is the least important thing that happens in preaching. The most important thing that happens is that the preacher is arrested by the living witness of Christ, and proclaims that in whatever way God has given her to proclaim it.